have a 10.
You're right, Senja. Cool. So kicking off our second event of the Green Book Fair. So thank you so much to anyone who joined us for the keynote. If you want that afterwards and you were not able to attend, just let me know. So the first panel event for the Green Book Fair is focusing on the literary agencies around the world, which was a really interesting kind of topic and that I wanted to delve into. I know a lot of independent publishers will be working with literary agents, but we don't necessarily know what goes on behind the scenes and the ecosystem of that. So I feel like there's a lot of learning to be done here, especially across internationally how it works. We might know a little bit about how it works in our country, but do we know how it works in different territories? So that's going to be really interesting for me today. Today we have Özlem Öztemel, who was born in Turkey in 1996. She graduated with a BA in Translation Studies, a brilliant degree for what you've currently gone into, from Istanbul University. And she's worked for 3 years as publications coordinator at a publisher called Alpha. And she came to AnatoliaLit from the publishing house İlk Satır, where she was the copyright manager. In addition to her work as an agent, Oz has translated children's and adults' title from English into Turkish, and she's joined AnatoliaLit in September 2021. So I'll be very interested to hear about the Turkey market and how that works. We also have joining us Senja Požar, who thankfully is not going to die driving. I'm really glad that stopped before the panel, bless you. So she is the director of Ljubljana Literary Agency and has been working in the publishing industry for almost 30 years. During this time, she's held various positions, including head of marketing, editor and developer at Digital Textbook Publishing, and editor-in-chief at Reference Book Department, editorial director at Educational Publishing, and editor-in-chief for magazines. Since 2016, she has been developing foreign sales and international cooperation to a highly professional level for 2 largest publishing houses in Slovenia, and where she also worked intensively on projects for Frankfurt Book Fair and Bologna 2024, where Slovenia was the country in focus. And in June 2024, this year, she launched with the support of, I'm going to butcher this name now, Senja, Solesvuba Vivek, the first professional Slovenian literary agency. And Senja is also a proud member of the group Publishers Without Borders, who we like very much at Comma, from the very beginning in 2020. So what I'm going to do is ask first our panelists some questions, which both of them will chip in on. Then I have some more individual questions about their various territories. And then we're going to open up for questions from the audience if you have something that you just really like to know, which can be absolutely anything. So hopefully we'll have time for all of that. So firstly, I wanted to pick your brains on how the global publishing landscape has changed in recent years, because I know it is constantly shifting and that's quite hard to keep up with. So particularly for smaller markets, what that is looking like.
Should Senja go first? Or should
Yeah,
I?
let's start with Senja.
Well, I do think that related to the small markets, that I'm seeing quite a lot of progress here. That especially middle-sized and smaller publishers are more and more empowered to go international, because I can see that they developed a lot of skills. They have started to employ foreign rights manager to train them. And this all international cooperation is on the much higher level now. And that especially if I observe the Creative Euro funding, that there are more and more consortium projects now, and that we feel like that we are on the same page now, and actually we also help each other. For example, each countries from Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Greece, and so on, we do have focus on maybe different skills, and some countries, for example, lack fellowship. Some countries develop fantastic fellowships. Some countries have fabulous residencies for translators. Some countries want to make them, and so on. but overall energy is very, very positive, and we are very much connected with each other, and this brings kind of new optimism and new ideas how to cooperate.
Does feel like a very small world in publishing, even though obviously we're all in different countries working on different books. So yeah, I would agree with that. Özlem, what would you think from your side?
Well, I think for Turkish market, you should know that we have a really bad fluctuating exchange rate, and the money is really weak, and the inflation is terrible right now. So because all of that, and because the publishers have to import the paper from China because we don't produce paper in Turkey. So because of all of that, they're generally struggling with economical conditions, especially the boutique publishing houses, the independent boutique publishing houses, has to go through all these hardships, and this, of course, has effects on the publications too. For example, the smaller publishing houses may be forced to cut back on the number of titles they publish, which lead them to be very selective when it comes to fiction because it's a hard style fiction. Uh, for us, like for Turkish publisher, initial print runs usually vary between 1,000 and 2,000 copies. And when you think about that, it's really smaller compared to US and UK. And they're really good at selling nonfiction, to be honest. Nonfiction, because we do have a really steady readership for nonfiction in Turkey, especially since the publication of *Sapiens*, and I'm sure it was huge everywhere else. But
It's really interesting to know about print runs.
yeah, it's really less. And I think we see the real change in fiction in Turkey throughout the years because the publishers have to follow the international trends, right? So this year we had an amazing success with romantasy. And you should know about Turkey that we're generally late to the game. We never do preempts. We never can sell a title on a proposal. That's why romantasy was huge past year and not the year before that. But another example for that would be Asian fiction. That's really selling like hotcakes, and mangas. They're really popular right now.
Well, that's very interesting. I mean, I know Japanese fiction is really, and Korean fiction are really on the rise in the UK. So it's interesting to know that you're seeing some trends there as well in Turkey, similar readership perhaps. So that's really interesting to know. I wondered for both of you, if you were giving advice to independent publishers right now, given these current market trends, if they're looking to expand their presence in international markets, is there anything that you've noticed that might help them? So I'll start with you, Senja. I think you're probably still.
Well, yes. When I was thinking about launching the agency, I thought that it is not that smart to be too much specialized because the trends on the market are changing. Okay, it means quite a lot of work and much work with the networking if you cover all genres and all categories of books. But it is rewarding when the trend changes. And what I see now is that I can easily sell lots of fiction titles, and it's a bit more difficult to sell rights for the children books, but maybe this is just my observation. Of course, non-fiction titles are always a must in the portfolio, but as I know, for some publishing houses, non-fiction is kind of too expensive, and they rather buy rights and do acquisitions, and they don't make their original titles. But this is very short-term strategy. So if they want to do something a program that is stable on the long term, I think they should consider to have some non-fiction program as well. If they're focused on adult fiction, it should be some non-fiction for adults also there. If they're focused on children books, there should be some hybrid children books or non-fiction children books also. So they will not be that much fragile if the trends change on the market.
Really interesting, actually, because we hear a lot in the UK, and I think indie presses in general, people would sort of advise you to go niche, go small, really hone in on that niche. And whereas you're saying, go big, go varied. So that's quite refreshing. Thank you.
But you have to know that whole Slovenia is kind of niche, you know. What is niche for you is normal for Slovenia. So we are used to survive with the very, very low print runs. But it is true that we have some systematic support by the government that is given for the publishing houses. We also do have a very active book agency that was launched years ago, with whom we also prepared this guest of honor and to make this wider international marketing. Yes, and we are used to this low print runs. It is a challenge, but it is also advantage when the market changes, when the trends changes, because you are more flexible to change the program, whatever. So we are working like this for decades.
Thank you, Senja. Do you have anything to add on that, Oz, quickly?
I think my advice would be to follow the international trends closely because we know that they are going to sell no matter what. And because our romanticy imprints have an amazing year, nonfiction publishers had an amazing year in regards of selling the books. And I think maybe they can select a genre and embrace it fully to have a unique look on the global market because we do work with independent publishers like that and they look really unique. Apart from that, I mean, I think it's wise to know that sometimes books that are impossible to sell one year may become sold after the next because of these changing trends. So sometimes it's just a matter of patience. You have to be patient and hopeful.
It's nice to know as publishers that, you know, we can sit on the backlist and bring it out in maybe 3 years when it becomes relevant again and look to sell the rights for that. So that, you know, is slightly uplifting. Know that if it's not gone, it's not a dead book. You could still get it to another country in translation, which, you know, is fantastic to hear. I wondered if we could talk, both of you, about marketing challenges. So when you're sort of working with a marketing team or looking at positioning a book with the author and publishing team. So I wondered how you would tailor a marketing campaign for a book from a smaller market and to appeal to larger international audiences, which I'm sure is something you're always thinking about.
Yeah, definitely.
We start with Senja.
Well, with these new technologies that we do have now, the approach to the international market was never that easy as it is now. So, and there are so many networking literature programs, especially in Europe. And when I did some research this spring, most of the rights are sold and acquired in Europe. So this is very, very vivid market. And especially with this systematic approach by Creative Europe. And as I said, a lot of small size and also smaller, very small niche publishers are now, if they have this, trigger, if they want to go to national, they can. It is that easy to go to Facebook. It is so easy to go to Instagram to promote themselves, to promote on the YouTube, whatever. They just need to have very, very good idea what they are bringing, why this is special, why anyone would be interested in that. They should have in concern that the topic must be as universal as possible, that it's possible to locate it in any, I don't know, country in Europe or outside Europe, of course. So this will probably bring them more audience and more success in sales. So when I think about the titles that I represent, yeah, I'm making huge front list and back list, because some of the titles are really great, even though they were published a decade or more before, but they are still so strong and they still can find the publisher. So we should never neglect the backlist. This is very important. Also, because the agency is covering now already supporting the authors from the 16 countries, the agent really has to learn the culture, the mentality, the trend, and to make the bridge. Actually, we are making the bridges. We are kind of culture ambassadors. So this is the way how to promote. And of course, it is really important to have this personal approach. Me, myself, I don't do auctions. I have quite a lot of contacts all around the world, but I am trying also to find the best publishing house for the book I want to offer, and to give them time. And I think this is the best way, at least works for me, that if not the first, the second publisher will probably acquire the rights. So it is up to me to do my homework, which book is appropriate for which title, and just don't do the massive work. I do send the newsletters, and I have really thousands of contacts. But if I compare how much of them really responds, I get much better result if I just make emails to the specific publisher, to call them, to describe, and so on. At the end, I get better results.
I like this idea of being a cultural ambassador for the country, as well as the book and the author, and what time period they're talking about. And I guess, how to position that to make it relevant for, an international market, and say, why would it appeal to their readers? So wondered, Oz, what's a challenge that you've faced when you're positioning a book for another market?
Actually, we follow roughly the same route when presenting a campaign for local authors and foreign authors, because we work both ways in our agency. Our director, maybe you've heard her name. She's quite popular in publishing industry. Amy carefully selects the Turkish authors we will represent. And since editors abroad rarely read Turkish, we should prepare materials in English, including a sample translation and a usually detailed synopsis. And we also put quotes from the book we love the most. And we generally use newsletters to share all of our campaigns locally and internationally. We use MailChimp. I think it's amazing. It's an amazing tool. And yeah, sometimes the cultural aspects of the context may be hard to translate and convey the message, because Turkish is a really different language than English. So I think the translation's quality is what makes the difference here. So we try to really careful with that. And our main point here that we are trying to choose the titles very carefully. So we're looking at the domestic sales. Domestic sales should be strong, and they should be award-winning, or they should have strong reviews. And that's why we need to have compelling reasons for an editor to even consider our book, because especially we're competing with the entire world. So we have to always think quality over quantity. We just choose a few books and focus on them, even if sometimes it takes several years. But again, we must be patient here. And sometimes being in touch with translators for the relevant language really does help. And of course, my advice is always work with a co-agent, because that's our job, right? For everything. But yeah, we generally use newsletters, and MailChimp is a lifesaver for us.
Cheers, Oz. So I wondered, both of you will probably have a favourite success story of an author or a book that you've worked on that has gained international recognition for your agency's efforts. Obviously, we always think of publishers launching books, but of course, they probably, you know, heard of that author through yourselves. So I wondered if you had your favourite success story to share with us. We start with Senja.
Oh yeah, I always said that it is really difficult to talk about the success because for some a reason, of course, should be the best sales, right? But for me, success is also when I can sell some Slovenian titles, for example, to some really small markets, because it's actually much more difficult to enter the door here, and because the competition is even harder. So I'm actually more proud when I sell the rights to some very small market. And for me, every agreement is something I'm proud of. Every you know, I do know that maybe there's some mindset that we should work. Just that we can reward it, but sometimes I get advance payment of, I don't know, 300 euros, 500 euros. Sometimes I have really big advance offer, but I will do the same for each agreement. This is really important. But regarding successes, well, yes, I did probably still, no, it is still the best and the biggest deal ever for any Slovenian title in America. This was in the cooperation with the National Geographic Junior Senja Education Center. So I managed to sell rights for Mojca Sonic, for her children's book, The House Who Wanted the Sun. So it was huge print run related to Slovenia. It's for 40,000 copies. So the project was also fabulous because now all school libraries in USA have at least one copy of this picture book. So this is really not just because of good sales and print runs, but this was also a very nice cultural project. I'm still very much proud of. And I'm also proud because I started from the scratch, 10 years ago, really didn't have no contacts, nothing. And when Slovenia approached these agreements to be guest of honor, there were years of building this network, but not just for children books, but also for adult fiction and nonfiction, and so on. And I managed to rise the sales for all categories of books. This was my goal, and I achieved it because there was huge rise of sales for the fiction book. So I managed to make operating networkings, which it is still functional now, and I'm still spreading it. I need to emphasize something also, because I just learned in the couple of months. Before, I represented the largest publishing house in Slovenia. It was great. We did marvelous job there. But now with the agency, and especially with this international portfolio, when we represent 16 offers from 16 countries, the agency can now reach completely new publishing houses, agents. I didn't even know they exist before. And this is actually even better for the exchanging rights. So completely new ideas arrive, completely new cooperations are possible. So agency has much wider horizon if you go that way than if you are in the in-house agency inside the company. This is much bigger. Yeah.
I like the idea of, because you're very right, success in books, you can define it in multiple different ways, whether that's book sales, publicity, or debut, rising to a certain amount of copies, which, is fantastic for, say, a niche topic or something, a prickly topic, a political topic, all these things we could say are a success. So I really liked what you were saying about that, and about small markets as well, selling to an indie publisher, for example. Like a lot of people who might be on this call, they're very selective, and they probably, you know, will have a smaller advance. But I love that you spend just as much time on the marketing and the contract, and, you know, making sure that that's a blossoming relationship. So that was amazing to hear. I wondered for you, Oz, is there something you're really proud of, or a success story for an author or a book?
Well, to be honest, we have not had any bestsellers yet, but we are hoping to. But we managed to sell the rights of, maybe you've heard of him, he's quite a popular politician in Turkey. Selahattin Demirtas' book called Seher into 14 languages, which was a really success for us. And Sevgi Soysal, she's a really important local author. We sold her title called Dawn. And Ozatay, he's a modern classic author, so he's really famous in Turkey. And his book called Waiting for the Fear, they were also successful with the sales and general reviews in international market. And in our contemporary fiction, our focus right now is on an author called Mustafa Nuri. He's also a movie director. His latest movie called Body was a really huge success domestically. So he's writing sci-fi, which is really interesting for Turkey, to be honest. But we really love the title, so our focus is on him right now, and we hope to have the same success with Selahattin Demirtas here. So, like as I said before, I think it's important to have domestic success in order to gain foreign success. So, our first point is to get successful in Turkey, and then after the international market.
Thank you, Özlem. I wondered, when you said modern classic, is that a certain type of genre that you would have? I wondered what that was.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we define modern classics just like everyone else. Oğuz Atay and Sevgi Soysal, they're that long ago, but their fiction still relevant to the Turkey's, modern social lives. So we call them as like modern classics.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to check that, you know, that I thought other people might not know as well, so I thought it was best to ask. Brilliant, thank you. So I wondered for both of you, and you've spoken a little bit about this, but how do you build and maintain relationships with the international publishers? You know, we're a connected universe, but to get a publisher's time is, I'm sure, very difficult. And what strategies are you both thinking about employing to ensure that diverse voices from your respective countries are heard on that global stage? So maybe we'll start with Senja. It's a nice little order.
In a practical way, it means that nothing happens over the night. So what I'm doing is sprint and marathon. So I have to be very active day by day, or disciplined, organized, to reply, to motivate, whatever. And at the same time, I need to be very persistent. You know, if you don't get the response now, maybe you will get the response in 2 years. So, for example, yes, it happened that I was motivating one Canadian publisher for several years, and now we will sign agreement for 2 books. So you never know. You just need to be really active and do this caravan from one book fair to another. And it is also very important to apply for the fellowships, because you really make this best connection with your colleagues, to know them better, to see what would work for them, which books and so on, what kind of cooperation you can build. And it really doesn't happen over the night. So as I said, I'm 10 years in that. Now I can say that I mostly know everyone when we meet, but still new people are coming, which is great. And we can still find new challenges, new ideas. But basically, it is really this. You have to be active. You have to go to the book fairs. You have to have a lot of meetings. you have to get as much as possible experiences, how to motivate, how to promote, who to ask, whatever. So I'm still working, and I will proceed working on all genres of books, which, as I said, it's a more much more work, of course, but I do know that if I was focused only on children books, that I will probably in 1 year lost very precious connections to find proper publisher for fiction. And it's also inspiring me because years I was focused mostly on Slovenian literature, and now I'm getting to know more Philippine literature, Greek literature, Several literature. It's really great. It's actually helped me more vivid. It is very, very, I think, dangerous that after some years, if you don't, as an agent, get some new, wider challenge, that you can fall into kind of routine. And when you fall in kind of routine, it's better to leave the job. So I'm happy that I have these challenges now to that I can work with the authors from many different countries and to be more connected with their markets, which also helps me to promote Slovenian languages in their markets because I know them. It goes hand by hand. Yes, it is always kind of is changing in this culture area.
It's a very difficult matchmaking service that you're both operating, basically, especially if you're working across multiple different genres. You're thinking, how am I positioning this book to this publisher who I know likes X, Y, Z? And then you're just trying to fit them together and hope that, like you say, 2 years later, they might send you a yes. So I think you're both very patient. Oz, what do you think about maintaining these relationships with international publishers?
Well, we're always careful with that, with international publishers, and I agree with Senja there. We try to see them on every fair. And yes, we do attend every fair as much as we can. And even if we don't have time for a meeting at the fair, we always try to see them off the fair, you know? So I think that would be my advice. Take them on drinks. This generally helps. So we also alert every international potential buyer of the recent news, which they inform me that they really appreciate. And at every fair, we try to meet new publishers and agencies. Big publishers are always organizing with parties or drinks. So that's a great way to meet with them. And also, we encourage our local authors to participate in international festivals, panels, and fairs so that they can have a physical presence internationally.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm glad that you mentioned that. It seems that a lot of this is about genuine connection, that someone isn't going to buy from you unless they really trust you, and they trust that you know them, and there's that kind of respect on both sides. So like you say, that does not happen overnight. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, so maybe we'll keep this one reasonably snappy. But I wondered what role translation plays in this international strategy. So we were talking earlier that you pretty much have to get samples every time. Obviously, you can't rely on someone knowing the national language. So how do you manage the challenges associated with that? Because I'm sure that the cost that comes with that, I know translation is expensive. So maybe we'll start with Senja.
Well, as I said, we have a very active book agency in Slovenia, which supports sample translations. So yeah, of course, with this, it's much easier to sell rights for children books. So this is how I actually started. And sometimes we lack with the complete English translations for adult fiction. But when you establish the network and when they know that you really are agent with a reputation, that when you offer some title that they trust you, then it is much easier. So this is why adult fiction selling is a bit more difficult, because it really takes time in networking and to bring to build your own reputation. Everybody is talking about the publishing brands and book brands and offer brands, but actually also agent is a brand. So I hope that with all this my journey, I build kind of reputation that I did my homework. So I did read the book, and if I really find that it is interesting, I honestly say that to the author. Yes, this book might travel. For this book, I'm not, but I will do my best to find you a publisher. And I have to say that when an agent, he's that skilled that to really know this book will travel. This is already 50% of deal done because if I have my word, if I give my word, then other publisher will take time to. And in most cases, I manage to sell rights. Of course, it happens that sometimes this book just doesn't fit in their program. Of course, it's normal, but then I try to find another one. So yeah, it really goes that way. Agent really has to do the homework and to think how this agent is different from other agents. It is very competitive world, and I do remember then 10 years ago when I started the stand in Frankfurt. I didn't know anyone, and someone said to me, "Yeah, for you it must be very difficult to sell Slovenian literature because no one knows it." But I said, "We have the best books on the world. You just don't know that." So it is my job to motivate them to take time. So yeah, but yeah, it is possible. So my message is it is possible. You just need to have persistent. And my strategy at the beginning was first to make tour to neighbor countries because we are kind of more geographically and culturally related. We know each other maybe more. And when I've got these first sales, I've got first references. Then I went to more west, more east, more south, whatever. But my first references of sales I got with my neighbors. So I did it that way, and I'm still doing it that way, especially when I don't have complete English translation for adult fiction. I first try to motivate Croatian, Serbian publishers. If they're interested, I already get 2 references, and then maybe I get another one, yeah, who will acquire. So I go this way.
Cheers, Senja. I know I have too many questions for our session, so I'm going to move on to my last one before individual questions, and then I'll go to everyone else. So if you have a question, you might want to start popping it in the chat so I've got an idea, because I have too many questions to ask these lovely ladies, and I do want to make sure that you guys get your questions answered too. So I wanted to end on a little bit of a meaty one for both of you. So I wondered how you approach the pricing negotiations for rights deals. So considering that there might be economic disparities between different publishing markets to do with RRPs, royalty rates, whatever it might be, the value they place on a certain book. So how do you approach that negotiation? I'm sure that's the bit that sort of makes or breaks a deal, takes away the nicety of the relationship you built, perhaps. And we'll start with Senja.
Well, there are 2 approaches. The first is if I know the publisher, that means that I already know how they operate, how much they usually offer, how big is the print run. So I already know how much I can expect. And of course, there are countries where prices of books are higher or lower, and of course, the advance payments are related to that. But when I get an offer from the country that I do know that they could offer more, I do negotiate for more, especially when I really know that I have the best title for them. And I don't allow them I don't want to feel inferior to anyone because I'm coming from Slovenia, especially when I have a good book. And sometimes I have to say it is not happening anymore, I believe, or much less. But at the beginning, Slovenia offers were already very lucky if anyone wanted to buy rights. So they accepted very, very low advance payments. I have to say that I was sometimes a bit angry because of that, because if one publisher offers really low advance payment, it will be very difficult for me to get more for other books and so on. So we really have to negotiate, but don't expect too much. Just go to the basics. How big is the print run? Royalty percent, retail price, and you can easily calculate how big should this advance payment and stick to that. And usually I don't have problem with these negotiations. Yes, but it is probably a bit different approach if I was in America. Yeah, than the print runs, and everything is a bit different there. But I have the perspective of the small book markets.
So just to be clear, Senja, because some people might not know, when you have a book deal, typically a publisher will come to you and they'll say, they'll give you an advance, and they'll say that the advance is a percentage of the income expected from their first print run. So say 1,000 books. Was that correct?
Yeah. It should be calculated based on the retail price and print run and royalty rate, which is between 7 and 9%, and you can easily calculate how much is that, and then you don't really have bad surprises about that, and yeah.
Well, that's good. You always know what you're getting roughly. And what about you, Oz? How do you approach pricing and negotiation in your agency?
Well, our first aim always when negotiating a deal is that the proposed advance has to cover the first print run. We do the math according to that, so it's our always first aim. If it's under that, it's a no-no, unfortunately. But the publishers are generally willing to raise their offer, and the advance may change depending on the book's international success if it's a foreign deal for us. If it's a Turkish title, the advance may depend on the book's selling in Turkey, the domestic sale, the book's length, how many pages the book is, and the genre. Because if it's a romantasy, or sci-fi or fantasy, they're generally more successful. And the overall success of the author, we're taking into consideration when we're negotiating a deal.
Amazing. It's great to hear that genre fiction is doing well for you. Sometimes the UK market can be a little bit snobby about genre fiction, and we have sort of the champions that are the best sellers. But across the board, people are a bit snobby about selling it. So it's great to know that it's working well for Turkey. So we have about just under 15 minutes left. So if you do have a question, pop it in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to ask it on camera. But I'll continue with questions if we don't have any in the chat, because I have a few more. So for Senja, I wondered, so you're the founder of Slovenia's first professional literary agency, which is amazing. And you talked a little bit about the challenges that you had at the beginning to build your contacts. But I wondered, what kind of opportunities do you see most in your market?
I need to correct you again. I'm not the founder. Založba Pivot is the founder. Yeah. What kind of challenges? Well, I always wanted to make a multi-culti story. So I wanted to connect because I am also expert of the small book markets. I wanted to connect them. So, and because we had quite successful guest of honor projects in Frankfurt and Bologna, and I think that our professional program was widely acknowledged, I was thinking, why don't we share best practices in the region or wider? So, so this is how actually agency was launched to connecting world, to connecting countries, to help each other in developing different skills. We didn't want to be just another agency. We wanted to bring some additional services also with the market researches or support, just as I said, with building residencies for translators or having workshops for foreign rights managers in different countries and so on. So there is still a lot of work. And the main goal of this is that if we develop in all countries all those skills, the international cooperation will be even more successful, and because we will be skilled enough. And especially also in Slovenia, now the magic happened because a lot of small size publishing houses were empowered to go international during this preparation for guest of honor project. So I was thinking how many small publishers are there in other countries. They didn't go international yet because they don't have resources and money for foreign rights manager, and maybe we can help them. So I got I see that now I'm getting really lots of interest for many countries, and still many of them are interested. And yeah, I really didn't expect something like that. I did know
It's
that.
lovely to hear about the skills sharing and just the willingness to do that. You know, I think that's a lovely opportunity. So we have a few questions in the chats. Chiara is saying she wants to know how you work with co-agents. So Oz mentioned that they always work with co-agents, but we wondered if Senja did as well. And what is the role of the co-agent now? If people don't know, when agents can perhaps more easily represent rights from a variety of countries throughout the world. So perhaps
Well, yeah, of
about
course, we
Senja
work
now.
with co-agents, especially for the big book market. You know, it is just not possible to employ so much of people in the agency, and it shouldn't be, because uh, there are co-agents specialized for different markets. And it's great to work with them because they know also their publishers are best, and we do co-agenting. This is kind of normal form of working.
What about you, Oz? What does the relationship with the co-agent look like for you?
We generally sign an agreement beforehand. We work both ways. So the co-agents we work with, sometimes we represent their list in Turkey too. So it's kind of a both way work for us. So we sign a deal beforehand generally. So yeah, it goes on, and we see them on every fair, like I mentioned, and we try to have a close relationship with them. We encourage them to participate in our local fellowships in Turkey. They generally do come here. So yeah, it's really great when the co-agent and the author meet. So we're really careful with that too. We try to make that happen generally. But yeah, we have a good relationship with most of them because we work like, I don't know, but maybe we work with 100 co-agents throughout the world.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's really a lot, yeah.
Wow, thank you. We have a question. I'm not too sure from what country or territory this comes from, but how much follow-up do you do after a book is sold? So ZD says they often have a problem with long delays, so the publisher will wait several years before they publish a translation of the book, which is sometimes not what the contract stated. So they wondered if you've had this problem and what kind of follow-up you do. So maybe start with Oz and then go back to Senja.
Yeah, I don't think we had this problem with our local authors in international market, to be honest. But we are uh, the Turkish people and the publishers are the problem here, to be honest, for the international deals because they publish the titles late sometimes. So we generally do follow up with them. But since we have a close relationship with Turkish publishers, we can just call them or, send a really careful text, email to them, to give them a warrant, maybe acting a bit stern towards them. They These kind of things generally help. So how much follow up? I can say once in a month. we put an alert to our calendar, so it notifies us, and we do our follow-ups like that. But like I said, we didn't have this problem with international publishers. To be honest, we are the problem generally.
That's good to hear. What I thought too is end on one last question for Oz, which I thought, I know there are a few young professionals in the chat that might like to hear this one. So I wondered what advice you would give to young professionals who are currently looking to work in rights, or specifically the international literary agency fields. What advice would you give them?
I would definitely say that do an internship, because that's how I get to be a literary agent now. At the university, I did a mandatory internship at a big publishing houses, so they recommend me to another one and another one, etc. So internships, I think it's a must. You should know as many people as from the publishing industry, for networking reasons. And you should chase professionals. I don't know, from LinkedIn, from Twitter, from Instagram, Facebook. And I think maybe you can, like, if you're into this kind of things, you can start a book blog, or you can share your reviews on Twitter, on blogs, so the publishers will notice you. But my first advice would be do an internship.
Cheers, Oz. No, that's good to know. Would you say they need a degree?
I'm sorry?
Would they need a degree in order to do the internship, or can they find that separately?
Yeah, no, it was a mandatory internship from the school, but I learned that, everybody can do an internship if they just apply for it. So you don't have to be a university student for that, to be honest.
Amazing. Thank you so much, both. It's been fascinating to hear about what is doing well in your different territories and how you approach it. I applaud you both for your patience in getting to the success stories that you currently have. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I hope to see you at later book fair events for the Green Book Fair. The next one, which we have coming up, is let's scroll down. 12 p.m. So we'll be continuing this theme, really. We'll be talking about how to approach a translation project with various people from all around the world. So it'll be brilliant to hear about how we approach that. So if you're an indie publisher looking to get into the translation market, it's going to be a really interesting talk for you. And I will pop it in the chats in case you have not yet got your free ticket. And apart from that, just want to say a massive thank you to our panelists for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone has a lovely day. That is in the chat now.
Yeah, thank you for that too. Yeah.